we will have in a matter of seconds the former CEO of World Series of Fighting and the Professional Fighters League from 2015 to 2019, also worked as the CEO and commissioner of World Team Tennis. This man has been all over the sports media landscape, but these days he is the president of Anthem Sports Group to be exact, Invicta FC, the Fight Network, and TNA Wrestling. And if you are a TNA/NXT fan, you will see him quite often in the front row at some of these events where the TNA and NXT wrestlers are being shared, and there's kind of a running storyline between the two of them. So it's a fascinating chat between someone who has been very much involved in the world of MMA and now very much involved in the world of MMA and combat sports once again, but also pro wrestling. There aren't a lot of these out there. So let us say hello now to our old pal, Carlos Silva, who I have not talked to in quite some time, but great to have in studio. There he is. Carlos.
Ariel.
You're back.
Nice to see you. I'm back.
It's great to see you again.
Great to see
Thank you so much. Please have a seat. Everything is great. I love the hat. You're always rocking the TNA hat.
Trying, man. I'm trying.
I didn't think...
Good to be back here.
It's great to be back, yes, because I said there's not a lot of people who have been in the MMA space and then reemerge in this type of space. Get closer to the microphone if you don't mind.
Here.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, that's perfect. But now here you are, very much back in the world of combat sports. You left in 2019, right?
Correct.
You were CEO of World Series of Fighting /PFL,
That's
2015 to 2019.
That's right.
Did the tennis thing. You were doing sports media stuff, and now back with Anthem, TNA, Invicta, Fight Network. This is a crazy journey.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing coming in here. I can't believe I'm back.
Yeah.
Back with Ariel. And I was trying to think the last time I was on the show, but I think it was right around when we did the big NBC show with World Series of Fighting at the Garden.
Yes.
And it was...
that Nick Newell and Justin Gaethje, perhaps?
Justin was last, great last fight, Justin. Then Justin went on to do what he's done at the UFC, which is awesome.
So how did this all come about? Because sometimes when you leave combat and you go down the more traditional sports path, you don't come back. You don't want to come back. And so here you are with this massive opportunity, Anthem Sports. I've known them for quite some time. Canadian guys, the Fight Network, they've been a staple. So how did this all come about for you?
That's really how it started. I mean, if you go back in time to World Series of Fighting, Fight Network was our distributor in Canada.
Okay.
And so we distributed. They were great partners. Got to know Len Asper and the team a little bit over the years, continued working with them even into the PFL days. And I got a call. From a friend, a buddy of mine, Rick Alessandri, who you may know. Rick ran X Games and now is in the recruiting business and was at ESPN for years. And Rick said, Len and the team are looking for a new president. I knew Anthem Sports well because of the properties. I obviously knew Invicta a little bit from back in the day and Shannon and what she was doing. And I felt like so many, almost going back to the World Series of Fighting, there was this groundswell around pro wrestling too. I think we're in this interesting moment in time. Feels a little, heyday-like again because of all the great things that are happening with WWE and AEW. And so I jumped in. It was a process. We talked about it. We talked through how to do it. And then I joined in sort of end of December, really January, because it was the holidays, and jumped in and have, spent the last 6 months reworking some things and rebuilding, and so far so good.
Do you live in Canada?
I don't. I live in outside of Washington, D.C.
Right. That's not required for you to live, because I know they're based out there.
I'm up in Toronto from time to time, but, right now the team is, in the world we live in, the team is in I've got some staff here in New York City, sales and marketing. I've got an executive producer in Cleveland. There's people, our team in Nashville, Tennessee, from the original TNA team is down there, Eric Tompkins and the team. So we're down there, and we have our studios down there and produce our shows. So we're everywhere, and we're obviously traveling almost every weekend.
So you're quite visible at a lot of these events. Is TNA taking up most of your time these days, or is it just because we're seeing you, but there's other stuff happening behind the scenes?
Under the sort of the Anthem Sports portfolio is TNA, Invicta Fighting, and then Fight Network, as well as Game Plus. And maybe from being a good Canadian, Game Plus is a variety variety sports network mostly in Canada.
Yes.
And I would probably say TNA does take the most time. I think it's a really important asset to Anthem Sports. But every day, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we've got our staff calls that have all of the teams on, and we're working through each of the business units to try and optimize each of them.
So I know you're relatively new, like you said, January or so, but the the resurrection, if you will, or the resurgence of TNA has been an amazing story to watch, because there was a period. I mean, I go back 02, 03, the beginning of TNA, they would have these Wednesday night pay-per-views. They didn't have a TV deal. This was Jerry Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett, and the pay-per-views were available for $9.99. I'm a kid in college, nothing to do on a Wednesday night, and so I was ordering these on a weekly basis. Events in Huntsville, Alabama, and the fairgrounds in Nashville and whatnot. And so to see this company go from that, the Spike days, and then like a little bit of a downturn, and now all of a sudden this. From your perspective, what has changed? What's the difference? Because honestly, it felt like they weren't quite 6 feet under, but maybe like 2 feet under at one point. And now all of a sudden, there's been a massive shift.
Definitely there's been some ups and downs. Anthem bought the property in 18, 19.
Okay.
And I think there's been some ups and downs there. I think we've really kind of looked at sports and entertainment as a property and not just as a wrestling promotion. And in the world that we live in now, and maybe with the 25 years of experience that a lot of us have and the team that we brought together has, we're trying to bring all those things together to increase every little piece of TNA. It's not just about having great wrestlers. It's also about having great venues. It's also about making sure the fans can get it. It's selling merchandise. It's bringing sponsors in, and it's getting the right distribution deal. And it's how do you take all of those things from all of the different properties I've been in now in a little bit, the years keep going up, Ariel, but it's okay. And how do you do that to create this engine that keeps building it? And I think we've built it from January to February. Every 30 days, we've gotten something that has continued to build the story. And we've always been building towards this UBS event, Slammiversary. We're so thankful to, with John Ledecky and the team that we're going to such a, beautiful arena. And we've been sort of targeting it over these 6 months to build it. And I think the build has been, one step at a time, but always up a couple of steps. And we've been pretty lucky that I don't think we've gotten, haven't had to go down a step to go up a step. We kept building. And then I think on top of it too, I think the WWE NXT partnership has been spectacular, really starting at Royal Rumble, continuing at WrestleMania. I mean, when you saw Joe Hendry run into WrestleMania, I was there. I mean, it was amazing moment for TNA, and it was, great partnership, really make that happen from the WWE and NXT side. And then it's continued to build, and the storylines and the way that we're crossing over. You're seeing our wrestlers on CW on Tuesday nights on NXT shows almost every week. And they continue to support us. We continue to support them. And I think it's just built the brand and the property up. And I think it'll continue.
So yes, July 20th, Long Island, UBS Arena, Slammiversary, sort of like your WrestleMania, if you will, big yearly show for the company. We had the Hardy Boys in a couple of weeks ago, which was tremendous, absolute legends. They're going to be a big part of it, Joe Hendry as well. And I'm happy that you brought the WWE relationship up, because I would agree. I mean, the spotlight that they put on TNA, mentioning the TNA brand, the title, having one of their guys become TNA champion, Trick Williams, is huge for the company. I asked Matt Hardy about the relationship, and I appreciated his candor. I said, why do you think this is happening? And he said, quite frankly, it's because they want to try to, put down AEW. And so it's to their benefit, WWE's benefit, to be in business with you. Do you agree with his assessment? And it's benefiting you, but do you agree with why this is happening?
Look, I think that, and this kind of goes back to even the early days when we were in MMA. There's a major league of wrestling, and we know who the players are. Obviously, WWE with NXT are the NFL of the space. AEW has done a great job over the last 6-8 years building up. They've gotten a great distribution deal, but TNA is part of the major leagues too, and so. Look, we've been in partnership with AEW well before I showed up as well, and now we're partners with WWE. If they really want to do it against AEW, not really how I see it. I just think that we've built such a great partnership together that I think they see the value in not only building up stars like a Joe Hendry that came up through TNA, but also letting the Hardys and Nick and others find another place to continue to celebrate their greatness. And they have now also crossed back over into WWE and NXT as well over these last couple of months. So I think that combination is why we're all working so well together.
Were you a part of doing that deal, or was that before you got there?
So the deal was really constructed before I showed up. And then as I showed up, I really helped to get it over the line, to get it signed and really get it going.
Was that with Nick Khan or with someone else?
That was with
Paul
Nick.
Levesque?
Yeah.
And how would you describe the relationship now, a few months in?
I think the relationship over the last 60, 90 days is just grown. I knew Nick a little bit going back to his CAA days. He actually helped me with the first PFL deal with ESPN before I left.
Right, when he was working in the rights business.
Yeah, so I knew Nick well then. He's been great. Paul has been very supportive at all levels, and you saw all the things that Paul said about Joe at WrestleMania, which was great and very supportive, and really you could see his thinking about growing this brand in Joe Hendry. So that's been great. And then Shawn Michaels and Johnny down at NXT have been great on the creative side, and we've been doing a lot with them, and they're super supportive too. So far so good. I don't really have any complaints about how it's been going.
Are you ever worried that some of your guys would say like, oh, it's quite nice over here, and then like if I play for the Knicks, I'm not really having a cup of coffee with the Lakers. You know what I mean? So is there ever a concern that they'll see something on that side of the fence when, if there wasn't a relationship, they wouldn't see it, and thus you might lose them?
Of course, yeah. But I think you have to take the goods with that and understand how it helps to continue to build TNA. I mean, as I've been doing this in and around the sports and entertainment business for a long time, I've always created strong partnerships that will help you. I've never really been I don't lead by trying to attack or create divisive ways to get there. I think if you partner with people, you can continue to grow and all boats will rise with the tide. In our case, we are the smaller boat. It's okay to say it. And so we do rise. And being, the other night I was telling my team, if you didn't see it, but Joe led the show with Trick on CW 2 weekends ago, and they put out that 750,000 people watched on CW. It was a great number. And it's a proud moment for us too, because our TNA talent led the opening of that show and helps those numbers. So I think it's good for everybody. So no, it's been great so far.
Okay, so I'll be 100% honest. Raw, Netflix, 8 p.m. Mondays. SmackDown, USA, Friday, 8 p.m. I know that AEW Dynamite is on Wednesdays. All these are live. I know they have Rampage on Friday. When does TNA air and where?
TNA Impact is on Access TV. Access TV is also an Anthem sports and entertainment property, and it's on from 8 to 10 Eastern Time every Thursday night.
Is it live?
It is live sometimes.
Sometimes. So you tape others?
Correct. So we will go to weekends. We'll go to loops, and those loops might have a live hit on a Thursday night. And then if we're there on a Friday night, the Friday night show might have 2 tape shows that would show the next Thursday and the following Thursday. And
the venues where the shows are taped, is it always the same venue or is it in different venues?
No, we right now we're a traveling event business, and we're at UBS Arena on July 20th. We're going to be in Baltimore. We're going to be in Minneapolis. We're going to be in Edmonton. We've been this year, in Atlanta. We were just in Tempe. We were in Vegas. And so we've been going around the country.
Do you think it has to be live every week?
I'd love it to be live every week.
You would, because there was a time where it was live, right?
Yeah, I'm a live sports guy, Ariel. I mean, when we have our talent meetings and I talk to the talent and I tell them, and guys, we're going to be live tonight, you can see them light up. Like everyone responds to live. I mean, I when I asked if this show was live, I said, great. I don't want it to be a tape show. I want it to be live.
Yes.
It's just, it's the interaction that you get that's different. So we've actually opened up a couple of our tape shows recently to a live look-in on TNA Plus as just a way to also bring a little bit of live flavor as we sort through the ability to do more and more live. I'd like to be live 52 weeks a year, but with that comes some deals and the costs around the operations to do that, and possibly finding a place to be 3 months, 4 months out of the year, so you're not traveling 52 weeks a year, which is difficult.
Of course, yeah, and expensive.
Expensive.
So let's talk about that, because you said that Access is owned by Anthem. I remember when Access was HDNet, right?
HDNet, correct.
Back in the day, Mark Cuban, and then it was sold. It's obviously not the biggest platform, and I've even heard you say they're not a sports network, so maybe we're not the best fit for them anymore. You said that recently, right? Yeah. And so, because it is owned by Anthem, could you sign with someone tomorrow, or are you contractually obligated to be on Access for X amount of time and then can go out and find a new home? No,
along with our partners at Access and Len and Andy Schoen, who runs Access TV, we want to find a bigger platform.
Okay, so are you actively? TNA. I know you have CAA representing.
We got CAA helping us. We're actively in the middle.
Okay.
If I could get a few things done, I'd love to tell you about
are you close?
Those deals. And we're close. I mean, we've been working on it. We've been working on it since the beginning of the year, really since I joined, and it really has accelerated over the last 60 days. And so we're working through it. But yeah, I'm excited.
How close do you think you are to announcing?
I think we could be in a 60 or 90 day window to get something done. I mean,
amazing.
It's as you know, the media landscape is changing every single day.
Yeah.
And literally week to week, things are changing. I mean, we just saw some other networks that are going to get sold again, this week that are changing hands. So you never know, but it's never done till the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. Sure. But yeah, we're working hard at it.
Would that come into play in 25 or 26?
It would come into play at the end of 25.
Okay, and would it possibly mean live 52 weeks, this new deal?
We've been asked by many partners that they'd like it to be live 52 weeks a year, and so we're talking through how we would do that. Maybe it wouldn't go live in January, straight away, 52 weeks, but we would certainly lean into that to try and make it happen, yeah.
Still Thursdays?
It could be up for grabs.
Okay. Are you married?
You'd have to look at the crowded...
Sure. You don't want to go on Mondays or
You don't want
Fridays.
to go collisions, and you don't want to start playing that game. And
Thursday seems like a good day for you guys.
Yeah, Thursday's worked out well so far, yeah.
And as far as pay-per-view is concerned, do you still want to stay in the pay-per-view business? Some people are moving away from it, right? So if you do a deal with some network... Are you now, like the Peacock deal, for example, where the pay-per-views are now kind of a part of the deal? What do you think? You're smiling, so I don't know. I'm trying to read what the smile is.
I mean, you should be sitting with me in the meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, those are the questions that get asked every time. How do we take your live Impact shows 52 weeks a year? How do we take your 4 pay-per-views, Slammiversary being one of them? How do we take the 8 PLEs that we do that are currently on TNA Plus? Many of the folks that we're talking to also have platforms, and they have either USA platforms, in some cases worldwide platforms. They obviously want to suck those kinds of assets into their platform, and we're open to it.
So TNA Plus is sort of like your version of WWE Network from back in the day. It's your own streaming platform.
Correct.
Where there'll be exclusive content, exclusive shows. How is that going?
It's going well. I mean, we just announced it. We have over 21,000 subscribers on TNA Plus.
And how much is it?
There's a couple of different tiers
okay.
between $5 and $10 a month, depending on the tiers, and there's a yearly subscription as well. And then there's also a tier that if you get the bigger tier, you get the pay-per-views as part of the package. It's gone well, but going it alone can still be tough. And having come from going way back into my AOL days, being in the subscription business is hard, and you have to care and feed, and you do have people buying and leaving, and you've got to work through the marketing dollars to keep it going. So I think all assets are on the table as we look at new partners. And someone actually yesterday asked me the question of, what would happen to TNA Plus if we did this deal and we've got XYZ platform? And the answer is, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. If it makes sense to move the 21,000 TNA Plus subscribers into a bigger platform, we'd sit and have that conversation.
By the way, did you know that AOL was on this floor in this building?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Was here many years ago.
Yes. Were you working out of this?
No, I was based in Dallas, but we would come up here and yeah, I remember these offices.
It's a wild thing because my show started at AOL when it was AOL Fan House, the MMA Hour, way back in the day. And when we came back here and did this deal with Yahoo a year ago with Ryan Spoon and everyone, I I was like, 770 Broadway. This address sounds familiar. So I typed it into my Gmail,
Right.
and it went back to 2009 when I was doing the show for AOL on this floor in this building.
Right.
It's a crazy thing to come all the way back here. So there's a couple, I don't know if you noticed when you came in, there's a couple of old AOL remnants.
No, I
in the
didn't, but
front,
I'll
so
definitely.
you will probably
I'll
appreciate that,
definitely
because
take a
that's
look.
way back in the early days of your career.
Yeah. Well, and then in the crazier part of it is Ryan Spoon was
President of Yahoo Sports now.
was one of our investors when we built World Championship Sports Network and Universal Sports
Wow.
at Polaris up in Boston. So I've known Ryan for years as well. So there's so many connections from these last 25 years, Ariel. It's great.
Are you still, so when you left the combat business, were you still following PFL, World Series of Fighting? That, like, were you still?
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
Of course. A lot of my teammates, people I brought into the business, friends, guys like Ray, certainly Don and Pete and, George Greenberg, and all those guys are good friends. So I try to keep in touch with all of them.
How do you feel about the current state of the company based on what you see from afar?
It's hard. I think it's hard. I think everyone, they've been spectacular at, raising a lot of money. They've been spectacular about growing into Europe. It's just being in the live event, business is difficult, and it costs a lot of money. But look, we'll see what happens with ESPN and where ESPN goes. There's so many rights deals coming up.
Yeah.
And, like everything, you got to be really good and you have to be a little lucky with all of these things.
So one brand that I've long been a fan of is Invicta. I love what Invicta has done, and I've always referred to Shannon Knapp, the founder of Invicta, as a survivor, because she has been in this business for a long time through many ups and downs. And there was a time where, you looked at the Invicta roster, maybe like 13, 14, and it was a who's who. And for whatever reason, UFC started to get into the women's MMA business, so they poached a lot of the talent, and now people want to go straight. How do we get Invicta back to where it once was? Is that even possible? Is that even an attainable goal, or does that need to be redefined? I know you have to deal with CBS Sports Network. They're still around. They still have solid fights. But can we get back to where Invicta was 10 or so years ago? Is that possible?
We think so. Shannon and I tackle this every day too. Again, it's a little hard. There's been a little bit of starting and stopping with Invicta. And so I think also laying out the schedule, understanding really where you're going to be, 8, 12, 14 times a year so that you can continue to get the consistency for the fans is important. CBS Sports deal been great because it is a nice platform and it does get a little bit of a shine because of the CBS Sports brand and its quality. The shows have been great. They look great. They're happy with the product. I think like everything, we're out there looking for sponsors, looking for other partners and ways to grow it. In fact, Shannon and I are flying off next week down to Orlando to look at another venue as another potential place and maybe a little bit of a home base that could also help out operationally with some costs. But look, you couldn't have a better person in Shannon in not only the
incredible
passion and the history and being a Hall of Famer to make it happen. The ladies that fight for her love her. She takes care of them. We just have to, again, sort of mix in that magic of how do you manage the operation of the event business along with sponsorship and the distribution so that we can dial it in. And that's what we're working hard on.
What do you think is like the sweet spot number as far as events are concerned for them?
I think it's probably 10.
10, okay.
Yeah,
so almost
I think,
once a month.
if you could do one once a month and take a break in August and December, I think it would at least give the fans... Shannon and I were actually talking about it yesterday. Give them some consistency so that they know when the shows are coming up, then they can follow the fighters, they can train with them, they can understand their camps, all those things that help lead up to the moment when they step in the cage and the excitement happens.
And the Fight Network is near and dear to my heart as well, because I remember when they launched in Canadian and I had a lot of friends who worked for them. And I remember when they were really heavily involved. They even had a UFC deal at one point. What is your take on the state of the Fight Network? And the one thing for me is it felt like it never was able to break through into the United States. Is that even a possibility? Is that even something that is trying to be done?
Absolutely. And agree with you. It's strong in Canada. It's always been strong in Canada. As having been on the other side and them being my distributor, they were always great in Canada. We've got a fast channel with really good traction in the U.S.
Oh, really? Okay.
And we're continuing to grow the different platforms that it can go. And now we're talking about some other live rights that we could bring in to the Fast channel. As you know, if you know a little bit about Fast, I mean, Fast is a crowded place. It's difficult, but live matters on the Fast side too. And so if we can bring some more live, look, as you move rights from Canada to the US, sometimes they're costly, but there may be some different rights that are also available that we can get in the US that helps to give Fight a little bit of that live, magic that they need that'll help with distribution. So yeah, we're Chad Migley on our team is
He's been
still
there forever.
Been there he's the oldest Anthem employee.
Wow.
He's a great guy and he's a hard worker, super passionate about what we have with Fight. And I think he's excited to try and, build it a little bit in the US together.
As you know, when a new president, new regime comes in, there's always going to be some change. I did want to ask about one that made some headlines, Gail Kim leaving TNA. What could you tell us about her departure? Because I think she was there for quite a while, 17 or so years, and it made big news. What was the reasoning behind her departure?
Yeah, so Gail, Hall of Famer, TNA Hall of Famer, been there for years. I think when you come into an organization, you have to look at what's working and what's not working. And sometimes you have to make changes because you got to move forward to continue the growth. And so I had to make a couple of hard decisions, not just with Gail, but with a few other staff to try and maybe reinvigorate, to your point, sort of reinvigorate what I think was already going well. But at least from what I've learned in my career over the last 25 years, when things are going a little bit well, that's not the time to sit and be happy, because everyone is chomping to try and get you. And so we kind of got a little more aggressive in making some changes that we thought we needed to make to sort of reinvigorate the locker room, maybe reinvigorate the knockouts division that I think we've done, elevate a few people that needed to be elevated and given some, more responsibility. And that was one of the changes we made. We made a few others in the front office as well. And look, so far everyone's responded well, and we have a great team and some great camaraderie going right now.
So, the reports online were that the locker room was upset over this. Are you saying otherwise, or?
I think in knowing a little bit about wrestling and knowing a little bit about working with athletes throughout my career, there are always going to be people that are upset. Gail had been there a long time. Of course, it wasn't an easy decision to make. It was the most difficult decision I had to make so far in running TNA. But I think what's important is what you do after that and how you bring people together and how we bring the locker room together and how we share what's going on with our talent and help them to feel like they're part of the business. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the last 3-4 months. And so far, the feedback I've been getting is people like the way things feel now. They like the energy. I'm a big energy guy. I'm a big positive attitude person, and I think it makes a difference. And so we're trying to inject that into the organization.
Do you think TNA could become the number 2 promotion in the world?
Sure.
Is that a goal?
Look, it's always a goal to get better.
And I say number 2. Obviously, no one shoots to be number 2, but obviously WWE is the big dog, right? They've got a massive head start. But there was once a time where TNA was number 2 in this country and around the world. Is that part of the motivation?
Look, the motivation's to get better every day and land where we are and be TNA. Like I said, we're one of the major leagues. We've got a great partner in WWE, and I think we keep getting bigger. Every 3 months. I think in the last 6 months we've gotten bigger every 30 days. And I'm a really big sort of what do you deliver in 30, 60, and 90 days. It's how you set your short-term goals. You can't just be thinking 3 years out. You got to think about that, but you got to really grind it out every single day. There's no one thing that makes you win. It's a little of everything. And yeah, look, I want TNA to continue to be big and strong. And if I come on your show in 6 months and you want to tell me that we're the number 2 promotion, I'm going to say, yeah, I think you're right.
The way the TNA WWE relationship has benefited TNA, I wonder if there's a possibility for an Invicta UFC type of relationship in that same regard. Is that a possibility?
Sure. Why not?
Same company, TKO.
Of course. And
has that been discussed at all?
Not yet, because I think we got to still rebuild what Shannon has been doing over the last 12 months. I think we need to do that a little more and continue to build the awareness, get more fights on, bring in a couple more sponsors. But sure, why not?
Yeah, I think it would be great. By the way, in the midst of doing all of this, all these deals, traveling, how are you doing all these Ironmans? It's the Ironmans, right? How many have you done?
I've done 13.
13 Ironmans. And for those that don't know, that's and here's a photo of you at a recent one. For those that don't know, how many miles on the bike? Is it the bike first or the swimming
swim
first?
First. You got to swim first because otherwise you might drown.
That's a good point. That's a great point. So how many miles in the water?
2.4 miles in the
And then on the bike?
112.
And then the actual full marathon,
26.2 miles, running.
That's insanity.
It's a long day.
When's the last time you did one?
That was Phoenix in October of 2023.
Okay.
I took 2024 off. I did 13 in 14 years, one every year.
Wow.
I took COVID off, and then I decided to quit. I think 13 was enough.
Okay,
I decided
so you're done
that
now.
I didn't need to tell Ariel that I needed to do. You'd be happy if I did 13, which most people are, but I've decided that I'm going to do another one. So I'm going to Chattanooga in September to do an Ironman.
God, what is the training like for that?
I just train every day. I run, I swim, I bike.
And you finished every time you started?
I'm 13 for 13.
Golly.
Yeah,
do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I turned 60 years old.
60 years old. Golly. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I can't believe I just said that out loud, but it's true.
No, I mean, God bless. We should all be lucky to be doing this at half of that, a quarter of that. And you don't find it hard with all the travel, all the work?
Oh, sure. Yeah, but you can always get up early,
Sure.
up at 5:30 or 6, and you can get a run in. I mean, with the travel, almost every hotel has a pool.
Sure.
And every hotel at least has a bike in the gym. It's not the same, but it's okay. You go in the gym and you ride the bike for a while, you jump in the pool, you swim.
How long are you training a day?
A typical day is, 3 to 5 miles running, 10 to 15 miles biking, and, 20 minutes of a swim.
Golly.
I do that pretty much every day.
What's the diet like?
Just, try to eat protein, eat well.
Golly.
Try to not eat bad things, just like we all should. But
and who got you into this?
Well, when I ran Universal Sports, I went to Boston College. I played tennis at Boston College, and in Boston College, I was on Heartbreak Hill every year with my buddies, drinking beer and having a good time. I played tennis. My buddy Brian played soccer. My buddy Renee was on the track team. We always said we're going to run the Boston Marathon.
Okay.
We never did.
Okay.
Because we were having too much fun at Boston College. So when I ran Universal Sports, the Boston Marathon, we were the broadcaster for the Boston Marathon, and I said that I wanted 5 entries to the Boston Marathon. And they said, well, you can't have them. You got to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So I said, well, I'm not going to be the broadcaster then. They're like, okay, we'll give you some entries.
Okay.
So I ran, my first marathon I ever ran was Boston, and that was 2008. And then the Ironman came to us and wanted us to do a broadcast deal for the Ironman races, especially Kona. And so we did the same deal, and I got some entries for Ironman races. And so I decided after running a few marathons that I'd do an Ironman, and then sort of just kept doing them.
Incredible.
Because I figured if I stopped, I wouldn't do them again.
Sure.
So I kept doing them, and we'll see. Hopefully I got one more in me in September.
Do you have kids?
Yeah, twin girls.
Do they do this?
No, they ran track and field,
okay.
and they're pretty athletic, but no, they don't do. They come in. They're my pit crew.
Okay, yeah.
We have the
hype
races.
you up.
We have a good time. Yeah, they help me out.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's great to see. Congratulations on all your success coming back to the combat sports world. Just when you thought you were out, here you are back, pounding the pavement. And I do really enjoy when you're front and center on the events. Interacting with the guys. It's cool to see. It's cool to have a face as far as TNA is concerned. I'm wondering when you're going to get involved in the angles now. Like, is someone going to hit you on the head with a guitar?
Let's hope not.
You want none of that?
No.
You just want to be the guy sitting in the front row.
I think being the president's enough.
Yeah, but it always happens, by the way. It always, eventually you'll do some angle, someone will put you through a table, and you are quite fit. I feel like you can handle it. We'll remember this.
I'll be the president for right now, Ariel.
We'll remember this.
It's good to close the circle and be back here with you too.
And by the way, let us know when you have that news to break. We like breaking news as far as the TV
absolutely.
home.
Well, are you coming? Will you be out at Slammiversary on July 20?
I have to pick up my kids from sleepaway camp that day. in Massachusetts. Like, I did want to go. Joe Hendry, actually, you know, we were talking about me being maybe his mouthpiece, his manager, sort of like Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns. But the call never came. You know, I actually had a cup of coffee with TNA. Now I'm going off on a tangent here as I'm trying to say goodbye. Jeff Jarrett and I spoke very briefly in like 06, 07 about me joining the creative team way back before all this started.
Interesting.
But the requirement was I had to move to Nashville.
Oh, got it.
And I was like, yeah, you know, I want to build something here in New York. So
You've done a good job building it.
I think it's worked out.
It's worked out well.
Thank you, Carlos. All the best to you. There he is, the man himself, the president of Anthem Sports Group. We'll take a quick break. Back with PT. Do not go anywhere. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up. Leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.